All right, so I would like to begin a regular just riff, just sharing what's on my mind, sharing my observations, sharing how I've connected some of the dots. I have to say, I really enjoy surfing through Facebook. It triggers is not the right word. It sparks so many answer finding tangents. And that's not to say, or that's not to imply, excuse me, it's not to imply that what I see on Facebook provides the answers, but they provide the stepping stones to answers. So I see things that look interesting, pique my curiosity, and I go off and do some exploration. I do some searching, I do some reading on what I explore. And it's like, yeah, threads joined together to make a tapestry, or to create at least a resonance of what feels to be true. So one of the things, I mean, yeah, with Facebook, obviously, what I see on my timelines will be different to what you see on your timelines, because I've created a particular bubble that focuses on my interests and things that I'm keeping an eye on. And one of the hot topics that comes down my timeline is stuff to do with the Anunnaki. Very, very topical. And we've got the two suns that are being filmed and photographed from time to time. There's the focus on the UFOs and the what's happening in space, Nibiru. I find it fascinating that folk tend to think that the only race that is out there, that they perceive in videos, that they perceive with the dual sun, that they perceive with the idea of giants and lost civilizations, is the Anunnaki. Is the Anunnakina. I don't know how to say that word properly, so I'll just stay with Anunnaki, huh? Might be safest all around. But okay, let's focus on the Anunnaki, because they are here with us. And we see that through the 𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿𝚿 videos, where they feature Jana and her amazing eyes. Now, in mythic times, and I'm talking about the Greek myths, the Nordic myths, the Sumerian myths, thousands of years ago, in mythic times, the gods killed, or they didn't like, humans displaying hubris. Hubris is a presumption of equality, superiority of the gods, but it's not boasting. Hubris is close to boasting. And the gods didn't like people to assume, or the masses, the ones that walk the earth in daily life, the humans. They didn't want the humans to assume that they knew as much as the gods. And look, it sounds to me a bit like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you get a bit of information and you think, yeah, that's easy enough. I don't know why they make a big deal out of this. Anybody could do it. Where you think, you assume that you know more than you actually do. And there is so much of that in the current alternative media, in the conspiracy or truther realms, if you prefer, or not. I just find it interesting. I told you this is going to be a ramble, So I'm going to be, well, I am thinking out loud. I haven't organized my thoughts in any cohesive manner, so it's going to be a hodgepodge for you to listen to. Hey, doesn't that sound like just having a conversation with somebody? I want to circle back to the term hubris. I find it hard to understand how people are so confident in their interpretation of their observations. In a small way, I guess I envy that, because I really wish I could settle on one position and be done with it. But by my design, by my makeup, I have to keep digging. And there's always a further level, a further insight, a further tangent, or multiples of those, multiple tangents at least, that I find it hard to understand how people can presume to settle on a branch, on a tangent, and stay there. The cosmos is vastly more complex than they would assume to tell you. People who think in black and white, how do you do it? How do you do it? There are so many shades of nuances. I know, I'm a terrible metaphor mixer. But how can you make categorical statements that all these mysteries are the fault, the cause, from the Anunnaki? From the Anunnaki. You know, it amuses me that a whole race of beings can be defined by the actions of a few in a particular circumstance. I don't know the truth of any of this. Okay, back up. Okay, one of the things that I like to make clear is that there is a huge distinction between information and interpretation. Information is what comes through your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, what you smell. Mind you that there's more than the 5 senses that information can come through, but we'll stay with those for the time being. But the meaning that you assign to that information is what is interpretation. And the meaning that you assign to a perception of information arriving through your senses is unique to you at that particular time. So another time in your life, you may have the same information coming through your senses, but you'll assign it a different meaning. You'll assign it a different narrative. This is the story part of human consciousness, or of consciousness. I wouldn't want to limit it to just humans. So the meaning that you give to information is your narrative. Now, it may be that you have observed somebody else's narrative and it resonated with you, so you've adopted it. You might have even adapted it. But getting back to my earlier comment, it defies me how people settle there and don't look any further. They ask no further questions. They make no further research. They make no effort to explore maybe the whys of the position they've landed on. And look, let's grab an example, say like the flat earth. Okay, yep, some people just show what you could consider compelling evidence, and it's certainly an area that I have explored because it sounded very interesting. So don't assume that I know nothing about it, but it didn't resonate with me to the point that I latched onto it. I felt there were many more unanswered questions than what those who assume to know about it and teach about it shared with others. Now, I am a cautious person when it comes to the agendas of those who seek to influence. I'm very aware of human frailties. It's one of the reasons I was drawn to the field of psychology. All right, let me just back up right to the wall and just share with you my understanding of my fellow humans, or part humans. Okay. In their essence, in their purest essence, I believe, or I consider, that most human beings are good, are well-intentioned, or they would like to be good, they would like to be well-intentioned. But I also appreciate that most people their wiring, their emotional and cognitive wiring has been so corrupted that it's very challenging for an individual to navigate beyond to a place of goodness, of purity. Let's just call it purity, so that they display themselves to the world as how they were originally intended. So, for instance, if you have like a child, a baby that comes into the world, it is wired in a particular way to its purest self. And then begins the process of corruption. And a lot of that corruption is done by people with good intentions. It's a long-term game that is being played out here. Okay, so to navigate by your will, by your intention, to navigate your psyche, your soul, your spirit, your higher self, however you want to conceptualize it, back to that point of purity is not easy. It is not easy. There are a lot of dead ends, a lot of traps. Okay, so most people want to be good, they want to be pure, but they don't see the corruption within themselves, or they don't see the corruption outside themselves. You know, when people just shrug and say, well, you know, that's just life, or when they accept. I don't know if you can hear that hum in the back, but it's raining. The rain has started. Anyway, so getting back to humans, I call them emotionally clumsy, and probably intellectually clumsy as well, because we've been indoctrinated into a certain pattern of thought. And that comes from the language that we speak. Languages are matrices of certain styles of interpretation of the information that comes through, but also from our systems. So when I come across somebody trying to be dogmatic about something they believe, I am cautious in approaching it. I'll approach it at two levels. I'll approach it at face value. You know, what are they trying to transmit? What information are they trying to transmit? But also, I will ask, who is this person or organization? You know, what is their agenda? What is their intention with passing on this information? Now, one of my particular challenges is that any time I ask an external question or an externally focused question, I find I have to ask that same question of myself. What is my agenda for putting out these videos, for writing the articles that I do, for taking the position that I do on social media? What is my agenda? And I don't want followers. I don't want to take money. I'm not seeking donations. All right, let me put it this way. When you leave this planet, when you are done with this particular lifetime, with this particular theatrical play where you are the character that you are now, when that play is over for you, or when it's time for your character to exit this play, what do you actually take away with you? And it won't be anything material. It won't be your wealth. It won't be your influence. It won't be the connections that you've made. But you will take away the soul development that you've invested in. You will take away the information or the wisdom that your soul has garnered in this particular lifetime. Now, as a totally unrelated aside, you will also take away with you any strong emotional bonds. And this will be as love as well as hate. And you will hear such bonds being created when people use such terms as, I'll never let you go, or I'm never going to let you get away with this. I will hunt you down through whatever, through the cosmos, or there's no place that you can hide from me. Okay, so I'll be with you forever. Forever and ever and ever. Okay, so I'm still in the process of deciding whether, in the idea of love, whether that's a good thing or not such a good thing. Fortunately, I believe in reincarnation, so maybe in the next lifetime I wouldn't mind exploring the love side of things much more deeply, because in this particular incarnation I tend to be a bit I tend to be independent. I tend to be more compassionate rather than passionate. And I'm certainly of the mindset, you know, that if you do love someone, the best way to show that, the best way to display that, is to let them do and go where they want to. So I have very much a challenge in binding somebody to me. But at the same point, there's a part of me that yearns to be melded in to another being. And I guess we're coming into the idea of soulmates. In this particular lifetime, the closest that I've come to a soulmate is, or has been, my sister, who I travelled thousands of miles to be with. But she's no longer present with me. Well, not in physical form anyway. But even then, it wasn't a a melding. It was a pleasure of companionship. It was a resonance of two flames that burned brighter together, who lifted each other higher. And I'm just, even as I speak, I'm thinking, how is that different from, say, a love match? And yep, I'm going to bring it down to male and female, and you can make of that what you will. Remember, you don't have to take my word as anything confrontational. Just, if you don't like something I say, let it wash over you. Anyway, so a love match, how is that different from what I had with my sister? What immediately comes to mind is an entangling of the libidos. Sex. Exploring love through sex. And that's a topic that I want to cover in a future time. It's one of the areas I've explored quite deeply. So with my sister, the soul mating was as reflections of each other. We weren't identical. We were maybe 80% resonant, that we could meet soul to soul without discord. But clearly she had her own interests and her own priorities, as I did. Anyway, okay, what you take away with you when you leave this planet. Look, I have no idea where these conversations are going to end up, or where I'm going to pull the plug after I've rambled on long enough. But I'd like to think that I can riff like this from time to time, just as a matter of interest, as a matter of just touching some curious topics, some interesting topics in an easy way. I love easy. My whole life, I always choose, or I always search for the easy way, because easy isn't, well, it's not lazy. I did get accused by my parents of being lazy, especially my mother, and probably my father, who knew I wasn't working at my potential. Oh gosh, doesn't that open up a whole can of worms? And this is part of how well-intentioned people corrupt each other, okay, by holding expectations. But, for you to get strong, for me to get strong, I need something to push against. Okay, so I haven't, okay, when well-intentioned, good people corrupt each other, or attempt to, okay, let's use the term program, to program each other to be a certain way, you don't have to take it personally. Okay, it's an opportunity for you to polish yourself against, you know, the boundaries that other people put to you. You are under no obligation. You are under no law of the universe to submit yourself to their expectations. Now, you can rationalize it. You can make excuses about why you do choose to fit in with somebody else's expectations of you. They may be legitimate. They may be legitimate. Or they may just be, you know, things that you need to sort out another time. Maybe it's still in the, you're still in the what I call ripening stage. Okay? There's a story that I share about my childhood. I was a bully. I pushed. I liked to corner people. especially meek people. I know, don't go there. But I wanted to see where they would draw the line. Where would they begin to push back? When would they say enough? And when I knew that, when I got them to that place, I was no longer interested in bullying them. My respect for them emerged. It's like, good, now you know where you draw the line for yourself. And it's the same in everyone's life. Okay, yep, shit happens. Shit is thrown at you all the time. People push you. They try to push you down. They try to push you the way they want you to go. But at what point do you draw the line and you say enough? Now, part of that point of enoughness comes with you having identified your options of planning your escape route, if you prefer. You know, if you want to confront somebody, there's that nexus point where they will either back off or they'll escalate. There might be other options too, I'm not sure, but let's keep it simple at this point. Okay, and then if they, with the best option being that, they back off, but the worst option being that they escalate, well, what is it that you're really afraid of? What's the worst thing that could happen? And once you've identified that, okay, if the worst came to worst, what's the worst that could happen? Look that fear fully in the face. I mean, the worst thing, the very worst thing, according to most people, is that they could die. The bully could indulge in violence towards you to the point where you die. That's the very worst thing that could happen, according to most people. But if you appreciate that your life is not bound by this body, this place, this time, then is that really the worst thing that can happen? And this is where most people are morally compromisable, because they will do anything to stay alive. Is that a bad thing? Is that not a bad thing? Only you know. Only you can make that decision for yourself. Because another fundamental truth I hold about humanity, and now beyond, is that as soul, at our core, at our individual spark that animates us, we're all equal. So imagine, there's a troupe of actors, and they are cast for certain roles in a particular play that's coming up. And one actor is cast as the king, the other is cast as his servant, another is cast as the villain. And the play goes ahead. Each of the actors embody their role and take, hopefully, great delight in doing so and not wishing that they had another actor's role. But when the play is over, they all go back to who they were, who they are. They might debrief, they might, have coffee together, they might have some wine together, debrief, dissect the play. They might explore, well, next time, we'll try it this way. Maybe next time I would make a better king than you did in this last play. Okay, so who knows? Who knows what goes on behind the scenes once the play is over? Okay, did I start talking about the Anunnaki at some stage? There are so many tangents, so many layers. But this is already easily getting too long. Do you mind? Do you mind? Let me know in the comments. I mean, sometimes I'll make short videos, I suppose, when I have a particular focus, but from time to time, I just want to let loose. I just want to just riff on particular thoughts that are bouncing through my head. And I'm going to commit to putting my strongest messages, my strongest teachings, I guess, into courses, but I'm going to probably bring out the same topics here, but in an unorganized, conversational way. So that way, if you don't want to take my courses, you don't need to. And just for the record, okay, who am I to be a teacher? You know, looking at the agenda of why people do what they do, why they stand behind certain messages that they want others to know. I don't think there's a strong enough focus on life beyond life. And because of the amount of corruption that is so endemic, that is so prevalent, that is so entrenched in our current world, I feel I have to plant the flag for your power, your purity. Am I powerful? Am I pure? Am I the right person to plant such a flag? I do try to vet my own motives. And I might have mentioned before, I love conversations. I love talking about the important stuff. And the most, excuse me, and as far as I'm concerned, the most important stuff is what you take away with you beyond this life. And I have no particular dogma that I will insist that you adopt. You can believe what you wish. I will share with you from time to time what my belief structure is. You may have already gotten clues if you've listened to earlier videos. But even though I have a particular belief structure, I want to say I'm not locked into it. I am, but there's a lot of room for more revelations. There's a lot of room for deeper understanding. So it's like I've gone through a particular doorway that for me feels like the perfect place for me to be at this time. And one of the qualities that I am exploring to develop is loyalty. That whole concept of loyalty. And it's like, okay, you go into a relationship with another person, a love relationship I'm talking about, and one person wants to commit, but the other person, for whatever reason, still has a foot outside the door. They don't expect it to work. They don't expect the relationship to last. So they're not going to give their all. And that makes it hard for the other person who is willing to give it their all. But if one partner is, probably through fear, not willing to commit, then that relationship will not work. So with the path that I'm on, and it's taken me a long time to choose a particular group or dogma to commit to. It's taken me over 60 years. And this one For me, it lights up my soul. It's like I have that sense of coming home, of coming back to where I should be. So even though I still have questions, they are not questions of, am I in the wrong place? They are questions of curiosity, of knowing that there's many more layers to be revealed. But there's also that sense of peace, like all in good time. There's also that sense of knowing that others look upon the path that I'm on with bias, with prejudice, with, well, bias and prejudice are just opinions that are locked in. And they're opinions that have been shaped through the corruptive process. So getting back to the question of, who am I to teach you about power and purity? For me, this is a continuation of my eternal journey. It's a mission. I feel it's a mission. Those who actually allocate missions might actually be laughing at me for saying such a thing, but I have this strong sense of mission that I brought into this life from my lives before, and it's a continuation. And the power aspect, topic very dear to my heart, and something that I'll riff about in a future time. But the power is for you to resist the bullying. Because the bullies are not going to stop their games. The bullies are not going to have respect for you if you don't have respect for yourself to make boundaries or to know what you stand for. I don't really like the idea of boundaries. I prefer the idea of membrane. It's a more organic concept. It's a more flexible, fluid type of concept. A membrane allows things to come in as well as to go out, whereas a boundary is something much harder, less transmutable. And the purity side of things is about remembering who you are in essence. And for me, those two, the purity and the power, go hand in glove. And where you have power without purity, that's a corruption. Where you have purity without power, that's really kind of ineffective. It's like, okay, if you want to call it heaven, you could call it heaven. If you want to call it like ascension, you could call it ascension. But it's like, it's just got no appeal for me. It's bland, it's vapored, it's the negative space. It's not really the space where anything happens, where anything is created. Okay, so on that particular note, I'm going to pull the pin here, and I will catch you another time. So before I go, let me invite you, if you have any questions about the big stuff of life, or even about the Anunnaki, if you think I can answer them, but I may or may not get facts right, but I can certainly share with you my thinking, my conclusions so far. I'm not finished making conclusions, but I can share with you where I've arrived at. But yeah, okay, so let's leave it there, and we'll catch you another time. Thank you for listening. Ciao.